Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PHLY Eagles podcast on a Wednesday afternoon. A treat for the sickos as we are welcomed in studio by Princeton wide receivers coach Brian Flinn. Coach, what a treat. How are you?
Pleasure to be here.
Merry Christmas.
Same to you.
How's everything going?
Great. Great.
Now, you will notice that we are absent the third seat over here. Zack Berman, a long-standing rivalry between the two of you. Has never been late for a show before, has decided that he would rather be in the locker room talking to A.J. Brown if he can. He's going to show up a few minutes late. Now, the truth is that that's fine, but we're going to play into that when he shows up late. I mean, the fact that you guys have been going back and forth nonstop for, I don't know, like 5 years now.
Yeah, at least better part of a decade, I think.
He's just thumbing his nose at you. The disrespect.
I thought we had buried the hatchet on Christmas Eve. But this is just
he had his nice
right
Yoshivas tweet.
He did.
Yosivash.
Yes.
But apparently he decided that he wanted to dip back into the tumble with you. So he's going to be very apologetic when he gets here. But I want you to harbor none of that. Let's talk a little bit about the Eagles offense, Coach. And we talked about some of the vibe stuff yesterday with Zach. I want to get your thoughts on that too,
Sure.
like how common that is with wide receivers wanting the ball and coaches and players, sort of spatting back and forth mid-game. But first on the offense, the charge that it is too predictable. And, there's the Christian McCaffrey calling the play on the Manning cast the other day. They come out of the 2-minute warning on 3rd and long this week, and I tweet let's open up the wide receiver screen playbook, and obviously here comes the wide receiver screen.
Right.
There are times when it feels like we know what's coming, but they also have so many talented players. Maybe there's a case to not overcomplicating things. What is sort of your general take on what's going on with the Eagles offense these days?
Yeah, I feel like the vibes in here right now are immaculate because we have the same hoodie on. I think that's really.
Look at this.
You can tell on YouTube that it's through the roof.
Yeah.
I think the predictability element of it, I think there's some truth to it. I think there's a decent amount of truth to it. The McCaffrey thing's a little overblown because anytime you see a tight end lined up deep, you could say, oh, that guy's going to pull.
Right.
So I think McCaffrey knows the run game. He's astute, especially with that man scheme stuff that they run. So, he figured that out.
Okay.
Are there elements of what they're doing that we've seen a lot the past couple of years? For sure. And it's the temptation, I think, is when you've had success, we're going to do what we do and what we hang our hat on. I think.
And Nick said as much last week. He says, the offense is the same as it was last year. And maybe that's a little bit of the problem.
Yeah, in the NFL, I think it's super hard because they're just so good at tendencies and their staffs are so big and the quality control and the scouting. If you're doing the same stuff out of the same sets, they're going to know it. And I think that's a little bit of what they were into. Now, when you're so good up front, you want to lean on those guys and say, hey, listen, it doesn't matter what they're doing defensively, but I think they haven't run the ball near as effectively, and I think that's been, again, that makes you look predictable.
And do you think that is more the structure of the offense, like the Monday to Saturday planning, or is that the actual game day play calling that is too predictable?
I think the one thing I remember a little more last year, and I struggle to say this because almost every single snap of what I watched Eagles do this year is on television, so I haven't seen the all 22. It's almost a caveat I got to put in there, but you see a lot less double moves off the screens or shot plays off the stuff that's getting blown up early.
Right.
And you see a lot less. And I don't remember a ton of stuff in between the numbers last year in the pass game, but it feels like there's hardly anything in between numbers in the pass game.
It does sort of feel like, we had, it took until the second half to get A.J. Brown on that in-breaking route against whoever they played on Monday, the Giants. And then DeVonta has the long touchdown, which is, they were very productive on offense against the Giants. But over the course of the season, it does feel like there are a lot of jump balls down the sideline, let's send these guys in one-on-one situations. I'm not smart enough to say, this is what you should do to get these guys more open, but, it does feel like when you watch the Eagles offense versus when you watch some other offenses, guys are running a little bit more free elsewhere.
The other thing, too, I think when you watch last year opposed to this year, they hit so many of the deep shot, which is almost always the first part of the read. So if I'm the quarterback, I'm going to yes-no A.J. Brown. If he's by himself, I'm going to throw it. And so there's a lot of trust in that because they hit so much of it last year that you may not be getting to the other parts that are on the other side or the intermediate stuff. So, I get that, but I also think there's a way early in the game to get it scripted where, hey, let's do some shorter stuff. Let's do some stuff that's not either a go or a stop outside the numbers, and get those guys involved a little bit easier earlier in the game.
Okay, that makes sense. One thing along those lines that I want to ask you about is the Eagles have one of the few things that they have struggled with over the course of the season is against the blitz, right? And the regular, like a 5-man rush, they do okay. Like against all blitz, they are 6th in the league in success rate and 15th in EPA per dropback. But when you look at it as 6 or more pass rushers, the big blitz, which they saw a good amount last week against the Giants, they get blitzed with 6 or more rushers more than any other team in the league. Like that is what teams are trying to do against them, and they are not good at it. They are 26th in the league in success rate, 29th in EPA per dropback when blitzed with 6 or more guys. What are like some, generally speaking, like day one offense type answers to those things, and what are the things that they are maybe not doing well enough?
Yeah, I think if you look at the general philosophy, so I went to Catholic school for 13 years, and I can probably in those 13 years remember like 2 scripture passages.
Okay.
But one of them is the wages of sin is death. And so every year in our room, we play a cover 0 team. The first thing we say is, right, the wages of cover 0 is death. Like if they're going to line up and say, my safety in cover number 2 on this side, this safety in cover, we have to throw the ball down the field. It has to be a touchdown.
Okay.
Now, I think there's ways to do it that are a little bit higher percentage than others.
Because it feels like all we see is those quick throws to the outside.
Right. And I think you can get, and again, without having watched All-22, I'm not sure what their 0 answers are. But there's stuff, whether it's an in-breaking route on a post, whether it's number 3 running a corner, where there's all kind of green grass to work. Everybody has their answers. It's usually some type of screen, some type of run every week, and some type of max protection drop back pass. And especially last week, it felt like they lined up in empty twice in a row.
They do. Yeah, they just go empty.
In the low red. And empty, what you're saying is that 6th guy is free and he's going to be in your face fast. So that ball has to come out quick. So it gets rid of, a 5-step quick post. It gets rid of a corner route. So, and then they could just kind of sit on all your underneath stuff. So,
and it was part of that drive at the end of the first half. That's why Jalen takes that sack, because I think they sent 6 and they were in empty. Yeah.
So I'm not, obviously if you're last in EPA or DVOA against all that stuff, you're not good at it. But I think what's happening is they haven't hit a bunch of explosive plays off, so you're just going to get more and more of it. You're going to get a steady diet of it the rest of the year.
And so, to you, is that like, okay, let's bring the back in, let's max protect? What's more, like, what would be more tempting to you?
Yeah, to me, I think you have to max protect, at least block 6 of them, and then get either A.J. Brown or DeVonta in the slot, like get a matchup against a safety. The problem is if you're always into the boundary, you're against the number 1 corner, which in the Ivy League isn't that big of a deal, but in the NFL, it's a big deal. Like that guy,
right.
A lot of those guys can shut you out. The other thing it does is if you move them around, in man coverage, they have to make a decision. All right, is that corner going to travel? Is the nickel going to cover that guy in the slot? So there's stuff you can do to move them around. Again, without having watched All-22, I'm not sure how much of that they're doing.
Sure. Okay. I think I kind of maybe hear Zack Berman. I don't know if he's coming in. We'll see. Just how rude he's going to be. We're already 9 minutes into the show. How rude he's going to be to you, but we will find out on that front. Let's dive into the A.J. Brown body language stuff.
Sure.
To me, I am not worried about A.J. Brown from that standpoint because, wide receivers. Wide receivers want the ball. He's going to want the ball. If he gets it 12 times, he's going to want it 15 times, right? But there's also probably an art to keeping him happy. And, only giving him 1 target in the first half against the Giants is maybe leading to some of that stuff. Like, how volatile do you have to handle like guys in your room about sort of target disparity?
Yeah, I mean, volatile I think is probably a bit much for us. Like my guys are as low maintenance as it gets at a position.
Okay.
But yeah, for 25 years I've had to do it. Like that's part of the job.
Right.
And if they're any good, they want the ball. So, and is there such thing as enough targets and catches? Probably not. If I got 13, I want 15.
Right.
Like, so no, I wouldn't be concerned at all about that. I mean, if you should be concerned if he's not if he's happy with 1 target in the first half or 1 catch in the first half.
Right.
That's what makes that guy who he is. The vibes deal is offensively. If you're playing good, the vibes will be good.
Yeah.
Whether you have a basketball hoop in the meeting room or you're playing Christmas music, like all that stuff, right? It helps. Like it's not a miserable environment and we're having some fun and competing and all that. But like we have to score points. Like that's what ultimately makes you happy on offense.
Right.
The other stuff is great and you should do it and you should make the environment as positive as you can, and no matter, even if you're winning or losing, I get all that, but what helps is playing well.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about that. But even when they're playing well in this game, they're coming off the 3 losses. There's the chirping back and forth, like with Hassan Reddick and the guys on the sideline. How often is that stuff happening in your experience?
Like, a lot. Yeah, a lot. I mean, I was thinking about this on the way
in
down.
a healthy way.
Right.
Yeah.
And even like so I've been coaching for 25 years. I've been fired by the head coach during the game at least a dozen times. And I'm a pretty laid back guy during the game. You know what I mean? Like I get bent out of shape here and there, but like I've been told to leave the field, like you're fired, get off the field. Like it's the second quarter with 4 minutes left. Like people say things and,
right.
and the next day they're forgotten to an extent. I think there's a line that you don't
Sure.
cross. But especially at that juncture in the game where it's there's 30 seconds left, it's 4th down, whatever. I don't know if it was before or after the timeout. Like
I think it was started during the timeout and then continued. Yeah.
Yeah, the stakes are high, and if you're the head coach and you see somebody coming off that you want in the game, like you're probably going to black out. And again, I don't think anything that he did there was over the line or
sure.
not unlike what you see every week. So I'm. That happens a lot. Yeah, if people were truly mic'd up in the games and you heard everything, it would not be great. There'd be some. I thought he got fired again. Like, what's wrong with this guy?
Yeah, there's always the stories of like the people who put the mic'd up together, like all the things that like, you would not actually put out there. Yeah, are you like in your room? Do you care about body language?
I mean, we address it, but like also there, I think it's overdone. Like I think a lot of coaches think they're like these experts in reading body language because they read. Article in Psychology Today 6 months ago. Like, right. I don't think like slump shoulders. If I look like a soup sandwich over here, that's bad. Like, another question from Bo, this is terrible. Okay, yeah, I got that.
Right.
But the flip side of it is like you can read too much into it. Like, and I think you need to address it. Like almost any other mistake, you address it. But 99 times out of 100, player goes, "I got you, coach," and then you keep it moving. I think if you dwell too much on it, look at the Phoenix Suns body language. It's an NBA game in December. Don't read too much into it. So I think it's overblown. I do.
And then what about the target disparity with DeVonta and A.J. Brown? Let's say you've got a Yoshi Voss and a Classy,
right?
And they both want the ball. How cognizant do you have to be about that? Does the quarterback have to be about that in terms of he needs to make sure that everybody's staying happy?
I think that it's more on the coaching staff than the quarterback. Like I think when you're assembling the game plan, you say, okay, we're putting this guy in this position for these plays and this guy for these plays. And then you kind of, especially when you have 2 guys, you try to balance it out as best you can. The quarterback has to read what the defense is doing. Again, receivers is different. Like the running back, you just turn the hand on the ball.
Right.
The linemen don't care if they get the ball. The quarterback gets the ball snapped to him. Tight ends are usually just happy to be there, with the exception of the really great ones. So receiver, you're dependent on the defensive look. You're dependent on the pass protection. You're dependent on an accurate throw from the quarterback. The quarterback can't deviate and just force balls in there.
Sure.
But I think it's the onus of that goes on to the coaching staff of evening out the targets, letting everybody do what they do best, putting easy stuff in there for everybody. Again, A.J. Brown is so good at the high degree of difficulty stuff that it's easy to lean on that, but I think you've got to find other ways when it's not working to make sure he doesn't feel like he's standing out there by himself.
Sure. Well, speaking of easy money, I'm going to tell you about Rocket Money, Coach, because Rocket Money is something that I use to save myself money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills. I can see all of my subscriptions in one place, and if I see something I don't want, I can cancel it with just one tap. I never have to get on the phone with customer service. They will even get you a refund for the last couple months of wasted money and negotiate to lower your bills for you by up to 20%. All you have to do is take a picture of your bill, and Rocket Money takes care of the rest. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has helped save its members an average of $720 a year with over $500 million in canceled subscriptions. Stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/PHLY. That's rocketmoney.com/PHLY. rocketmoney.com/PHLY. And if you save that money, you could spend some of that money at FOCO. Because FOCO is a leading manufacturer of sports and entertainment merchandise with a product line that includes apparel, accessories, collectibles, toys, novelty items, and more. It is the best officially licensed gear for all sports and fandoms. It's football and tailgating season. They've got overalls, hoodies, hats, sunglasses, bags, everything you need for a game. FOCO has hooked up PHLY and provided awesome pieces for our sets. FOCO always has our back for Philly sports, and they have yours too. Get the best gear around by using the link in our description. For all non-presale items, use the promo code PHLY10 for 10% off. Another little offensive philosophy I want to ask you about, Coach Flynn. We've talked about this with Deniz last week. The red zone run rate for the Eagles. The fact that they will run on third and medium, third and long in the red zone because it feels like they're trying to get to the tush push, get to the brotherly shove. Are you okay with that?
No, but I'm never okay with any run rate.
Okay.
So, I mean that's I'm a little biased.
You're a passing man.
But we've had some of the same struggles scoring touchdowns in the red zone. I think instinctually you feel like you can get in the red zone and just bash people over the head and hand the ball off and score. But we've watched a bunch of people do it. The offenses in the country we studied because we were so bad at it. We watched Alabama.
Well.
Teams like, oh, hey, what's up, man?
Come on in, Zach. Take a seat. 16 minutes late for Coach Flynn.
Not late.
The guy.
Not late. As someone
no
who covered,
respect.
As someone who covered and respects Tom Coughlin, I don't believe in being late. Although Disney on Ice tried its best. No, I was
if
working
it's
that
Coughlin
locker room.
time, then you're 21 minutes
I was working
late.
that locker room. Great to see Coach Flynn.
Great to see you.
Had the chance to see his son as I walked in. Shook his hand.
Austin.
Nice handshake. Respect anyone who has a summer job so he can get playoff tickets for baseball. That to me is that's good parenting. That's good. That's a good way to be right there. I respect that. Nice to see you too.
Yeah,
Bill.
I mean, Austin was here on time.
Yeah, I was doing my job. Okay.
I do respect the coming in hat in hand, though. You know what I mean?
Yes.
He's doing his best.
All right, well, let's let you finish what you were talking about before we get to lazy pants over here. The offenses that you've looked at, you were talking about.
They come up with easy ways in the red zone to score touchdowns. A lot of those are short throws, jet sweeps, crossers. You're outnumbered in the run game so much that you're never going to just hand the ball off and walk in. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I think that's a crutch a lot of guys lean on, and they're afraid to throw the ball in the low red zone because bad stuff can happen. But if you look at the really good teams, they're just again, the Dolphins the other night against the Cowboys, right? They run 3 guys to a side, they move the running back, all 3 guys pick for the running back, and he runs in the flat for 2 for an easy touchdown. That's helping your quarterback out. That's taking the freebies when the defense gives it to you. Again, you don't have to always resort to being bigger and stronger and shoving people into the end zone.
And so how much does the lack of motion for the Eagles sort of leaving free money off the table?
I mean, I think it helps the quarterback just figure out what the defense is doing. You can create a bunch of busts, which is you remember that from the Super Bowl. Especially teams that are man coverage teams, but it lets the quarterback see what's going on. So if nobody moves its zone, if somebody goes with the motion guy, it's man.
Right.
Even something just that small down there could make a big difference.
Yeah, and I also think the third, fourth down stuff. Last year, I think it was a real advantage for them to know that they were a 4-down team and they could play the series that way. This year, I think the fact that other teams know that they're doing it that way means that those runs on 3rd and 6 are not as effective because before other teams would have been thinking there's no way they're going to run here. Now that the book is out on them.
Yeah, analytically that was a thing early on where 3rd and long might be your best run structure if you know you're going on 4th down.
Right.
If you know you're green, if you know we're not punting here, we're not kicking the field goal here, but if the look isn't good, if you're getting man pressure or zero pressure, there's not very many good runs into it, and you're going to be outnumbered every time. So, yeah, I think that's something that analytically was on one end of it that I think a lot of defenses have caught up with.
All right, let's turn our attention to the Stone Cold Newsman. Saunter in here. Late. Tell us why. What did you learn in the Eagles locker room?
I was in the locker room today. A.J. Brown declined to speak today.
Again.
Hopefully we catch up with him tomorrow.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think he's probably letting his emotions cool down.
It's been 48 hours.
It has. Had a chance to speak to a number of different players, Reed Blankenship, Avonte Maddox, Brandon Graham, Jordan Mailata, who I have a piece coming out in the next few hours, presumably. Maybe I'll hold it for tomorrow morning, but in the next few hours on his White House visit, which I spoke to him about last week and followed up with him about today. And it was interesting to hear. He didn't just sing in the White House. Jordan Mailata had 45 minutes in the Oval Office with the president and Dr. Joe Biden.
Really?
So yeah. So that you can find that all on allphly.com. Frisky. They had a conversation.
Who knows what happened behind closed doors? I don't know.
I don't know what you're intimating there. But in any event,
Did you ask him about his like foreign policy opinions?
no. You know what I did though? I asked him, as like we've covered during these past 5 years, how surreal his life is. You know, can he imagine like this kid growing up in Australia? And now he's in the Oval Office talking to the President of the United States. And he like can't get over it. He said just playing in the NFL is like beyond. If you had told him this, you know, a few years ago, he would have walked away. Yeah, it was nice catching up with him. Matt Patricia spoke about some of the concepts we spoke about with Fletcher Cox. He did a great Belichick impression, if you will, in that he was asked about Kyler Murray, and he went on to talk about their entire offense, right? Like outlining all these different players they have. Spoke to a few players.
Talking about Greg Dortch?
He did not. The Wake Forest and Richmond, Virginia native. He did not.
Well,
Nice touchdown last week, Greg Dortch.
Didn't do a good enough job.
Nice touchdown.
Greg Dortch is
Go
actually
Geeks.
a part of the ALLCITY Network family.
Is
So
he?
shout out to our
Go Deeks.
Yeah, our friends
Small
at,
hands,
at
Greg Dortch.
PHNX. That's all relative too. And then you know there's a lot we can talk about, but I got in the car. I ran from the locker room to get down to the car.
Wait, so hold on. Yeah, you know, you're going to be 20 minutes late. You didn't even get to talk to A.J. Brown or Hassan Reddick. All you did was follow up with Jordan Mailata and sit in on the press conference
let
that
me
you
ask
could have
you this.
watched online.
If I was sitting in this studio, okay, and A.J. Brown gave the press conference of the year or the
We probably
scrum
would have
of the
seen
year,
video of it.
you would never let me.
We probably
live
would have
that
seen a
down.
video of it.
You would never let me live that down.
Yeah, but that's
Plus-
that is my
Plus,
that's what I get to do.
I knew we had Coach Flynn here, okay, and frankly,
and you and
I
he
got to be honest
do
with
not
you.
get along. And famously, this is you
I
again.
listened to the top of the
throwing
show.
umbrage in his
I
direction.
listened to the top of the show in the car, and everything that Coach Flynn was saying is more valuable than you like ridiculing me here. Number one.
I mean, I have to own part of it. Like, I didn't get you a sweatshirt. I mean, it's clearly a point of contention.
You got a hat
got
that
him
my
a hat,
son wore.
yeah.
He has a
I got to
thank
do
you-
better, though. I got to do better than a hat.
No, he has a thank you note for you. And
My son's never written anybody a thank you note. I promise you that.
I for the audience that's new here, first off, we have to establish that Coach Flynn, a longtime guest of ours, but we're growing this audience here at PHLY, is an accomplished wide receivers coach. Princeton University, used to work at Villanova University, so very familiar with the Philly area, although Princeton is kind of within the Philly area, and went to Mount Union, so played for the great Larry Karras, and knows the Sirianni family well. So is a very special guest for us, in addition to his insight. And then I want to, this beef that Bo keeps talking about is, it's manufactured by Bo, which is,
the facts speak for themselves.
I give Bo credit because
first time you've ever been late for a show.
Bo is an entertainer, and he does a great job kind of creating this friction. But I respect Coach Flynn, and I want some of this like Princeton charm to rub off on me here. It's been the year of Princeton. Great basketball season. The two general managers in the World Series, Princeton baseball alums, right? Princeton beat Penn in football this year by a touchdown.
Yeah, it happens a lot.
Penn had the late charge.
I believe you've never lost at Franklin Field. Is that right?
At Franklin Field, I'm undefeated. Yeah, they did beat us in 22, which I don't want to talk about. But Franklin Field, which is they just painted it for the first time since Chuck Bednarik was playing for the Eagles, so that's exciting.
It's
I'm
like
sure
the
for them.
Robert Wolf like scoreboard or something like that.
Yes.
It is. That's exactly
is,
right.
yeah.
The U.
After Bo Wulf here.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
named after me.
Yes. But I enjoyed the conversation about, in particular, the zero blitz, the Catholic school education there. If I'm a Princeton wide receiver, that's like ingrained in my mind now. When I see zero, make them pay for their sins.
All right.
There's a Chip Kelly expression too, but I stayed away from that one. I would
Nothing wrong with Chip Kelly.
not be well received.
Chip Kelly's solving college football right now. So
Well, they're not taking his advice, but I did like his take.
Spot on.
What
Agreed.
was the reaction in the Flynn household to the Yoshi Voss tweet from Zack?
Yeah, so it is funny
Christmas
because
Eve?
there's like the closer circle of my family, which is essentially people living under my roof, know you two guys well and appreciate everything you did. But like my relatives like in Ohio and like the extended. My mother does as well. My mother's
Zach, this is all about your reach here.
Yeah, so my other was like, man, wow, this random journalist is just shouting you out because of how good Andre's playing. I'm like, well, yeah, sure.
But it's also true. I mean,
is true.
Every week he's on. He's doing something that's
there have been texts to Bo and Shield in the
player.
past. Heads up play by Yoshivas. Heads up play. And so it's happening every week. Yeah. And I'm saying I'm not trying to like flex here, but whatever reach I do have, these are just facts. It's worth pointing this out that this guy's well coached, right? Like when you're making plays on the onside kick a few weeks ago, jumping on the loose ball, like just heads up. He is well coached. Now, as I always say, the credit always goes to the player first, right? Not to take away from Coach Flynn, but there is someone in that room for 4 or 5 years coaching him up.
Now, I would tell the scouts this too. His biggest jump was during COVID when I didn't see him for 12 months. Andre's, he didn't need a whole lot of coaching. I mean, that's pretty easy.
It's been pretty fun to watch, though.
Oh, it's been a blast. And he's such a good person. I mean, they do play the Eagles next year, I think, but I don't think it's home. I think
it's in Cincinnati. Yeah.
But he's a great interview. I mean, he'd be awesome.
Love that. You had, Coach, I think for Zach, a Joe Flacco, Tommy DeVito nugget?
So the two best people I've ever seen throw a football in person were Joe Flacco when I played at Villanova. We played Delaware. And then the Tommy DeVito story is he was a sophomore in high school, and I was at Rutgers camp, and he was just launching bombs in one-on-ones to a guy named Shenga Hodge, who ended up being a great receiver for us at Villanova, to the point where we offered Shenga because he caught like 35 touchdowns in one-on-ones because he was very fast and he was great at adjusting the deep ball, and Tommy DeVito was just throwing ropes. So I've known about Tommy DeVito for I guess probably 6 or 7 years, and then I recruited North Jersey for a while when I was at Villanova. So I'm a fan of Tommy DeVito. Dylan Classy's a North Jersey guy who played for us, and he knows everybody up there. So I get a ton of Tommy DeVito stories from him. But there was a lot of people were hurt when he got pulled early in the second half last week.
I mean, this just continues the rivalry because all Zach's been doing is crushing the guy for his Syracuse career.
I'm not crushing him, but he took over a team that went 10-3, and they didn't continue that success. It's not all on the quarterback, but I think Tommy DeVito would tell you his Syracuse career did not go the way he was expected. He was, like Coach Flynn said, he was this big recruit from Jersey, right? If you're getting a quarterback, because the guy who preceded him was like from Oregon, okay? And not to take anything away from that, but like in Syracuse,
all of a sudden now you're against people from Oregon.
No, you're getting a quarterback from Jersey, like named Tommy DeVito. That's playing right into the Syracuse audience right there, right? They're going to enjoy that. And it did not go well. Fortunately for Syracuse, they got Kyle McCord coming now. So Fran Brown, as I said, is fulfilling my dream of putting an all-Philly team together.
All right. A couple things from our conversations yesterday that you wanted to tap in on, Coach. Let's start with you were there, as you said, over text on Christmas in 2017, that Raiders game when they looked so bad, contrasting that with the team coming off with the win over the Giants. You're more on Zach's side here.
I am, but you're still 11-4. You still have good players. Yeah. Your health is trending in a relatively good direction. There are games left to get some of the stuff fixed. Now, again, the other part of my brain's going, well, you've seen however many games in a row of this, but you're 11-4, so there's been a lot of good. And I think that you forget they did beat the Bills and play great. They beat the Cowboys already. They beat the Chiefs. There's a lot more. Like we went to that game 6 years ago on Christmas, and it was lousy. I mean, it was not offensively. They were a mess. And they were much better on offense. Now, again, different opponent 6 years later. You're comparing Christmas to Christmas, but not necessarily apples and oranges. Really, apples and oranges there. But I don't think it's never as good or as bad as you think it is. And I think it's hard to, as a coach, have 11 wins in 15 games against this stretch of teams and be like, oh man, we're terrible. Now, are we playing as good as we can play? No, but there's time left, and there's good players in the building. And you've seen teams do it. I mean, they sort of did it that year. Now, again, it was with not as good a talent in the building. So I don't think it's nearly as bad as people are making it out to be.
And now, do you agree with the premise I presented that you'd much rather your problems be, whether it's like situational football or, third downs, you're not getting enough pressure as opposed to a talent issue?
100%. Well, anything you say in general, I'm going to agree with.
Thank you.
But on that point in particular, for sure. Like now I've also been there the past 2 years where it's hard to get out of the rut in the red zone, not scoring touchdowns, and that ends up costing you. And that could be the case, but you'd much rather have good players who are healthy, have a good quarterback, be good up front on both sides. Now, again, the D-line has struggled the past couple of weeks, but you still have good players. Like it's everything's solvable. Now, will you get it solved? I don't know that. But I don't feel nearly as, oh, man, this is a disaster. You're first place in the division. Like, you can still get the number 1 seed. Are you going to do it? To be determined. But I just think it's way, way negative. Oh, like, we won, but do you feel good? Well, you won, so you should feel good. I mean, it's still the NFL. You're still playing good teams. Now, again, the Giants aren't necessarily a good team, but
I mean, that like literally the worst team in football coming into that game.
Well, not literally. I mean,
by DVOA, yes.
But like wins and losses are also a metric that some teams use. There are teams that
that's the whole point is that we are not. It is not just wins and like.
No, but I would argue the worst team in football is the team with the fewest wins in football.
Okay, that's fine.
I don't think that's an outrageous statement to make.
It's not too crazy. No.
If you're going to cut me off and say argue pedantics
the
over literally
YouTube,
by metrics that measure everybody equally, they are the worst team in football. Okay. Sorry. And so if DeVonta Smith is telling me that he's not happy with that performance, like why should I be happy with that performance?
Well, I think you should be happy though. That's his reaction. That's a good reaction from a good player. It's like, oh, I got 1,000 yards and we won, but I can still play better. I think that's, as a coach, it's like, this is exactly what I want to hear from a good player after the game. Right. And I think that's obvious. They can play better, but you still won. Like you're still in first place. Like you're not dead. You're not dead. We're acting like they're buried.
Of course not. And I am trying to now go through the process of like tricking myself into being able to evaluate this team on its own merits and divorce everything from last year that is factored in here. But like I still come back to like the middle of the season. You want to tell me they're 11-4? We should all be happy. They fired their coordinator 2 weeks ago. Like that, they're not happy.
Sure, nor should they be, but it's like Coach Flynn just said. There's a difference between saying like we need to get better here and here. We're 11-4, but we need to get better, and there's a difference between that and saying this team's unserious. They're not going to win the Super Bowl, right? I think the Eagles are closer to like I'm giving perspective from speaking to people outside that building who are asking, why is there like such unrest in Philadelphia right now? They're 11-4.
But that's
this conversation came when they were 10-4.
But that's the thing is, it's not just unrest in the fan base; it's unrest in the building. We know that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They realize they need to be better. I have been on here day in day out saying they need to, especially the pass rush. I wrote last week. That needed to be a get-right game for the pass rush. The pass rush did not have a single sack. I heard Matt Patricia again today say, I'll give Brian Dable credit. They got rid of the ball quickly. The New York Giants had allowed, at that point, I think 15 more sacks than every team in the NFL, okay? It's not like all of a sudden they woke up and been like, let's throw the ball quickly. There's ways to counteract it. There's ways your cornerbacks can play to get them to run either disrupt them at the line of scrimmage or alter their routes in such a way that your pass rush gets home. You can get them in obvious passing situations where your pass rush can get home, and your pass rushers can win one-on-one matchups. And we spoke about this with Fletcher Cox yesterday. To me, that's the biggest problem right now on the defensive side of the ball is everything looks different when you get a pass rush. When all of a sudden teams are facing 2nd and 18 or they're off the field on 3rd down, that changes everything. So that's number one. I heard Jason Kelce say something on the radio this morning where he talked about the penalties that he's personally had in recent weeks, and he said if you just take away those penalties, like things change in a major way. And I point this out not as like defending these penalties, but football is the type of game where if one thing changes, there's a whole series of reactions that occur thereafter, right? So if all of a sudden, instead of being at the goal line and there's a penalty, right, and you get pushed back, if that's a touchdown, the whole game script is different if you have 7 points instead of 3. And so my point is, they're really not that far away from you sitting here saying they're 11-4 and they're awesome, in my opinion. Like there's things they need to improve, and if they don't improve them, they're going to be out pretty quickly in the postseason. But there are things that they can definitely fix in 2 to 4 weeks. And the reality is, they could still be the number 1 seed, or the odds are them being the 2 seed, having 2 home playoff games. And if you said, I'll defer to the coach here. If you said to any coach, you can have 2 home playoff games, and then you have a 1-game chance at the Super Bowl, anyone would take that.
Sure.
Yeah, yes.
I mean,
Firm yes.
That's fine.
I think both can be right. I think both can be right. I think that's the struggle right now is like if you would walk out in the lobby and ask my son, like, it's over, it's curtains. And then if they win Saturday, like, they're going to win the Super Bowl. And I think you're vacillating between those two things.
Every week is a season, as Zach likes to say.
Yeah.
It's just that, like, yes, they could improve all of these things, but they haven't yet. We're taking it all on spec that this is a possibility, and we're looking back to last year's team. If they can flip the switch to play like last year and play that cleanly, great. They haven't done it really in any like 2-game stretch this season.
Isn't there equity though that they've built up?
But why? That's what I'm saying is we cannot just keep saying, like, organizationally, sure, but like this year's team is not last year's team. They don't. This year's team does not have last year's team's equity. Every year is different.
Sure, but I think your quarterback has equity. Your offensive line has equity. Your top players. If you've done it enough, then I think you can. And these are players who've done it in big games, in big moments, and frankly, they've done it against the best teams they faced this year. I was having a conversation with someone earlier today. He's another reporter. I'm not going to mention a name here, but he was discounting.
You always make this so mysterious.
Flex. Yeah,
well, no, because I don't want to speak for somebody, right? But he was discounting Jonathan Gannon's year last year because Jonathan Gannon didn't face good quarterbaks, okay?
Right, and much more talented.
Also facts.
Yeah.
And so the flip side to that is...
His team is, I believe, 32nd in defensive DVOA this year.
He's not going to let you finish. It's not coming, right? Yeah, there's no shot. There's just no shot.
So then there's 2 ways of looking at this. Number one, then you either have to give this year's team credit for winning these games against against teams at the top of the league. Buffalo, Kansas City, okay? The Dallas Cowboys. Miami, yeah. Yes. Or you have to take away from the offense last year because it's not like, if Jonathan Gannon was, I mean, we don't need to go down that rabbit hole.
Here we are.
If A.J. Brown puts up big numbers against Tennessee, let's say, and that's not a top of the league defense, then it's similar to getting 70 sacks against quarterbacks who aren't very good.
Okay. I'm trying to decide which way to go.
This is a fun show.
It's a fun show.
The Flyers aren't on until 3:30, so we can keep rolling. I like this.
Okay. Before we keep rolling, let me tell you about Game Time. You know about Game Time. We've been talking about Game Time since day one, people. Game Time, if you're buying tickets to your favorite events, it shouldn't be stressful. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. What do they have? What do you think? They've got flash deals and last-minute tickets. Easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area, images of seat views, lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection, and more. Game Time is the place for last-minute tickets. Forget planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. The Game Time guarantee means you will always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code PHLY for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. To your point, Zach, I do think that if I'm being like Opie optimist and as rosy as I can be, I don't have a lot of hope for like the defense turning into a top 8 caliber defense. But the offense, even as many self-inflicted wounds that they've had this year and struggles over the period of time, they're still like a top quartile offense in the league. And I don't think it takes, like to the Jason Kelce point, I don't think it's going to take a lot for them to tweak some things to be an elite offense. And if they can do that, if they can put the right game plan together, and those guys can win those one-on-one matchups, yeah, they can be the kind of offense that could carry them to a deep playoff run. And then you're not asking too much of the defense. Maybe you get like a lucky turnover here or there. That's not crazy. And it's not like the depth of the NFC is
exactly.
super imposing. And if you get 2 games at home, it's certainly possible. It's just, it's like Shields said about the Chiefs this week, right? If they had a plan already, we would have seen it. And I don't know that we have seen it yet from this Eagles team.
Yeah, I just think the difference there too. Like the Chiefs don't have guys on the outside.
Sure.
Like I think that's. I feel pretty good that Andy Reid has a decent plan.
Right.
But I do get what Shield's saying is that it looked the same for 16 straight weeks or however long it's been. It's not going to change. But the difference is guys. Like the Eagles have them and the Chiefs don't. And I think that is probably cause for hope for me.
Great shot from EV on the chat, who says his dad or her dad got tickets to the Christmas game on Game Time using the sign-up code.
I love that.
Great work. All right, some other things on your list here, Coach. Let's see. Oh, brotherly shove. You got some takes on the shove and the way it's being officiated.
I think it's despicable how it's being officiated.
It is ridiculous.
It's over officiated. It's the move the ball penalty was nonsensical. They've called the Kelce for being in the neutral zone when it's somebody else's hand. It's embarrassing. Just anytime they go to
take the play out if you want the play out. Like this like make them really, really adjudicated in a different way is like it's a little bit nonsensical.
Yeah, it's passive aggressive to me. Just if you're gonna embarrass yourself and try to remove the quarterback sneak, just embarrass yourself and do it. Don't do it in this heavy-handed officiating way. It's comical right now.
Now, Kalen Kaler from The Athletic had a nugget in a story last year saying Kelce has been known to kind of move the ball a few inches. Is this a common practice?
No doubt, especially short yardage, 3rd and 1, 4th and 1. They all do it. Yeah, it's.
Can I don't understand why moving the ball forward makes a difference. Because Kelce's not moving forward. The ball still gets snapped to the
backwards,
quarterback
yes.
He's still getting the ball in the same place. I don't really understand.
The only
maybe
issue,
like the guards can lean their heads forward a little bit. Is that like
the only thing I've ever thought was that when you move the ball at all as the center, the D-line can move, and then it triggers their movement. But
yeah,
no, I don't think there's any
they have to be off the line of scrimmage a little bit.
So
I
my
guess.
understanding, and I could be wrong here, and please correct me, is that a big part of that play is how Jason lines up and the momentum he needs to get to go low. So if he's able to move the ball forward a little, then he can lean a little more forward, and therefore it just gives him a bit more of an advantage.
And that to me the key, and it's the center to 2 guards. Like the shove part of it doesn't even do it.
Yes.
The shove's erroneous. Like it's not necessary.
The shove comes into play like 1 every 8 of those.
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, and I also like if they take the play away, they will be very good at quarterback sneaks next year. It'll be fine.
I like the one in the Browns game this past weekend where Joe Flacco just the defense didn't really defend it, and he just kind of crawled for 4 yards. It was fun to see, and he's 6'6", so he can lean forward there quite a bit.
Audubon Hardware, good new best friend with Michael Dunn. Shout out to
he's playing great right now.
Michael or Joe?
Both. I mean, I haven't fixated on Michael's play, but
I'm always fixated on Michael's
I've watched a lot of Joe's play. I got a nice Christmas card from the Duns. So shout out to Marissa and Madison and Michael.
There you go. Dean Blandino, you want to talk about the broadcast, the Moose Johnson of it all?
We can do better as a nation, can't we? Than Chris Collinsworth. And
I certainly agree.
You're getting Joe Davis and Daryl Johnston again this weekend.
Are we really?
Yes.
Sakes. Yeah. Moose doesn't even really try to hide his disdain for Philadelphia. He just, there'll be something going on that the Eagles did well, and he'll be talking, the Eagles will gain 8 yards. They'll be talking about what a great push-pull move by the 3 technique. It's a first down, Moose. I don't know. We can do better, I feel like.
Yeah, there was a play. I think it was the long Jalen Hurts throw, the beautiful throw on 3rd and long, just over the outstretched arms to A.J. Brown when the game was in the balance. And he was talking about the hustle from the D-line to get down the field.
That's exactly what it was. Yes. You're
that's your takeaway from
here,
that play?
man. Yeah, it's I don't know. We can do better. I feel like as a nation. I mean, I feel like something needs
As
to
a
be done.
nation?
Yeah, something needs to be done.
I'll have
Maybe
Jordan
get
talk
Jordan,
to,
have
I'll
Jordan talk to
President Biden about
Yeah.
that.
That's right. It could have been in the
Put a bug in his
conversation.
ear.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't even remember what the note here I have on risk aversion is. What was that on?
It feels like I don't know. And again, this is
Like the third and fourth down
Yeah.
stuff, where it is not consistent. It is the classic Flynnism of you can't date the analytics, you got to marry it.
Yeah, and maybe I'm fixated on the Super Bowl punt on 4th and 3.
Yeah, I still am. Yes.
Yeah, which that to me
Yes.
keep the offense on the field. That's a first down for sure, or more likely than not, I guess. Probably a better way to put it. But it's not just showing confidence in your players, which is the vibes for part of it. It's also you're going to get the first down more often than not with who you have. I think they had a 3rd and 1 this week where they handed it off.
Yeah.
And didn't
And then they
sneak it.
lost.
And it
Lost
was like,
yards, yeah.
Trust them, man. You have a lot of good players. To Zach's point, they've built up a lot of equity, and it's how they got there last year. So I put the game in the players' hands. I mean, it's leave that offense on the field for just the reasons you talked about defensively, where they've been banged up, they've struggled. Like you're better off.
On the topic of risk aversion, and this wasn't a 3rd and 4th down, but the timeout the other night at the end of the second quarter, which when it happened, I texted Bo and I said the only plausible reason that I can think of for this is that he didn't want to leave the Giants too much time in case they don't convert to first. And Nick actually said yesterday that's what was on his mind, and he should have called the timeout earlier. But he said he didn't want to leave the Giants too much time. And to me, that bewilders me because you're operating from the position that you're not going to get this. And I would operate from the
scared
position.
of Tommy DeVito?
I would operate from the position like, all right, maybe you score too quickly, right? Because you have to be confident that at that spot on the field, with the way your offense has been playing the whole game,
And the way their offense had been playing.
yeah, that and I do think Nick realizes that, but it is the type of thing that needs to be automatic, and not just that. What worries me in terms of that game situation, part of it, and this goes to what Coach Flynn was saying about the risk aversion, is that's not a decision you're making in real time. That's something you're probably talking about a few plays before. When you get to this, when you get here, when you start using your timeouts. And they clearly did not want to give the Giants any chance to get the ball back. And I think that's a poor way to be thinking in that moment.
Yeah, and I have said before, I do think that is Nick's instinct, is he wants to be conservative. Like, he has to be talked into being aggressive, and it has to be like, wow, we are so good at 4th down on the sneak. Like, I can't really argue with that. I think that is his inclination, which is interesting for a wide receiver background. But
The end of the half isn't as hard as it seems with the timeouts. Like, you call the timeout when you have time left. Like, it's that simple. If there's a moving clock and you're under a minute, what are you saving it for? Like,
Right.
the later you call your timeouts, the less is available to you calling
Right.
plays. Like, you can't run the ball now if there's 30 seconds left because it's going to eat 2/3 of that time. Like, call the timeouts when you have time. Like, that's particularly end of half, end of game, because otherwise you're wasting it.
Just to dive back on the bickering stuff, the stuff we don't see, like the day-to-day in the building stuff. How often do you find that there is like contentiousness that carries over?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's natural. Like, you're around guys especially with their schedule, which is twice as long as ours, from July until January, every day in high-stress situations. A lot of times telling each other things you don't want to hear in order to help make them better, and so it's going to boil over. I think when you get into trouble is when you don't address things head on. So you can't. It's hard for me to speak on the what's going on with the team, because what are they doing behind closed doors? Are they calling guys in to meet with them individually, letting get stuff off their chest? I think I would imagine there's a lot of that is going on, and that to me is when it spins out of control, when you don't address people individually, have hard conversations. You hear a lot of stuff like what happened with the Raiders this year. Like, when there's a disconnect from the head coach, I think that's when you have problems. They show a video of the post game and he lost the locker room. You have no idea. It's either Nick's too fired up after the game, or he's too subdued now this week. Like, it's not going to please anybody. And to his credit, I don't think he's himself. And he's been that way from the beginning. And because of that, I tend to believe that it will be good in there, and it has been. Now, I don't, because I'm not in there. I don't have any knowledge, any further than you guys do. But the fact that you're going to be at each other's throats is not uncommon. I mean, it's you're around anybody that much in those type of situations. It's bound to happen.
And go ahead.
Oh no, I would even argue, and I know it's not either or, but I would much prefer that than apathy, right? I would much prefer someone who is maniacally intense and he's at your throat than the person who is thinking about going to Bermuda this summer, right? Like I want players who care enough that when it's a high level, you know, if the reason why Hassan Reddick reacted that way was because they called a timeout and he thought he was going to get a good rush in there, I want that type of intensity from my player than someone who doesn't want to be in that moment. Is my point.
Okay. What did Nick say in his press conference yesterday, Zach?
So Nick actually said that he thought he was a little too tense. Okay. And he thought that there are times he needs to kind of rein himself in. And so he did acknowledge that. I asked about body language. We've had that conversation, and it's been a phrase that I've heard fans and media members use. And Nick says he doesn't pay as much attention to body language as action, and he understands that body language can be interpreted as a form of action, but he's more focused on like the action of a person than, let's say, the body language of a person. As far as Jonathan Gannon, he was very, I'll say this, he was very complimentary, but he wasn't over the top in terms of, you know, he called him Coach Gannon.
He didn't thank him for being the one to suggest that Nick stop calling plays?
No, and just as an aside here from speaking to a few players and whatnot, I think they're expecting this game to be personal to Jonathan Gannon. Like this.
Oh, to Gannon.
To Gannon.
Oh, like
yes.
he's going to pull out everything.
Like I think they're saying, all right, this might be a lousy. I mean, they're not saying this, but this might be a lousy Cardinals team. But this is this guy's Super Bowl, right? This guy, they want to win this for him, and he wants to win this. This is one of those things where, do you remember when
Ellen Barbary came back?
No, not that. I was actually going to say Jeff Saturday last year, but actually it seemed like Nick took that game personal more than yeah. So I suppose when Nick went in there, it could be like that when they wanted to get that one for Nick, who won that one for Frank. The players in Arizona probably want this one for Gannon, but
that's presuming that they have his back, that they care about him.
I haven't watched a lot of Cardinals film this year, and I should be watching it this week, but I have not yet. My bad.
That's okay.
Not lazy.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, you're too busy being late for the show.
I'm too busy doing my part of my job is being there at the facility, reporting, giving expert insight on this team.
Oh, now all of a sudden he's an expert.
I would like to think, yes. If I'm not, why am I sitting in the seat?
I don't know.
You know, that's no, seriously. If you and I aren't experts on this team, why are these people giving up their time watching us?
So uncomfortable right now.
I think the good looks.
The good looks. Well, you got that beard going. Yeah. But that was the crux of what Sirianni said. The headline seemed to be him saying that he was too tense and he needs to check himself a bit.
Okay.
Also, by the way, Jalen Carter, he said Nick Sirianni said that Jalen Carter's lack of playing time or decline in playing time was not a result of the penalty, but was because they wanted to play Brandon Graham inside more, which strikes me as a worse reason. I would want Jalen Carter on the field. Matt Patricia explained today that offensive linemen, there are different types of techniques, and there are different types of techniques from the defensive linemen. And so when they see Brandon Graham, it presents them a different look than a bigger guy does.
I've always looked at
which
it
they didn't do against the Seahawks.
It's always like this, like who's more excited that Jalen Carter's not in? You or the opponent.
Right.
You know, they've got to be pretty excited when he's not out there. I mean, it's not
well
tough.
said.
Yeah, it's not that tough.
All right. If we don't have anything else on the Eagles, I want to give you a chance to talk. Just the two of you talk Sixers, because I know you have like Sixers takes to get off each other's chest.
Well, there are more. I wasn't here for the first 15 minutes. There are more like Eagles questions and football questions that I have for Coach Flynn.
Okay, go ahead.
Fire away.
And like general, I guess wide receiver questions. The
Don't
number
pigeonhole him. He knows more than wide receiver.
No, but he is an expert at wide receiver too. The number 3 receiver spot is a sort. You've heard our show.
Yep.
We've been talking about this. What would I don't want to put you on the spot and say what would you do, but like what should the Eagles do here? Should they value speed because it opens things up for everyone else? Should they?
By the way, we haven't talked about it on the show this week, even though most people know it. They went from playing Quez, the most of those guys, 2 weeks ago, to he played 1 snap in the last game.
And so that's one of those things where watch what Nick does. Don't listen to what he says.
Right.
He says the other day they're happy with Quez. He opens things up, but the rationale for Quez is always kind of the benefit that it gives the other receivers.
Right.
Julio Jones, who I'll defer to you. I mean, he's Julio Jones, and then. But OZ just does all these small things. You saw him blocking downfield on Devontae's touchdown. How would you manage those 3?
Yeah, I feel like the Quez argument would hold up better if the other 2 guys weren't already fast. Like you don't need a guy to take the top off if you have A.J. Brown. He can do that all by himself. He doesn't need help. And same with DeVonta Smith. Like he gets himself open. They get vertically down the field. So I think that we all want that as an offense to have the guy to take the top off, but I don't think they need Quez to do that. They need somebody to generate separation, get open over the middle, win against a nickel. Like whoever's the best at that, which I don't think Quez is that guy. It seems like they try to make Dallas do a lot of it. You know, that the tight end be the guy that wins one-on-one. I think sometimes, like even on the pick 6, like is the best place for Dallas Goedert to be by himself running a speed out against a corner? Probably not, right? Like you'd probably want him on the nickel or the will. Again, with hindsight, I got all the answers. But I mean, Zacchaeus, when he's been in there, all he's done is good stuff. You know, touchdown catch on a scramble.
Why he's just not the guy.
Yeah, I don't, and I'm not at practice and all that other stuff. You know, the same stuff that everybody else says. But like every time he shows up, with the exception of the kickoff return, which I have been in his position when you miss your guy, or somebody shoves you in the back, and it's like, oh my God, this is really going to happen now. Like it's that stuff happens, and it's avoidable sometimes it's not. But I mean, when he shows up, he's doing something good. You know, when Quez shows up, he's usually not. And
just sort of running off the field.
Yeah, and it's, you know, I think you can get more out of that spot for sure.
The motion conversation. Have you had this on the show yet?
We did, but we can have it again. That's
fine. So Nick said that you typically do motion to gather information, but there's other ways to gather information other than motion. Are we in the media and the fan base making too big a deal about motion, or is motion as valuable as the McVay-McDaniel tree makes it seem?
Yeah, I think it helps as long as there's a string that threads the motion that you're using with the run game, with the play action pass. And I think that's what the 49ers do the best. Like their receiver screens, they'll motion the guy to set up the blocks, or they'll motion the guy to alter the box so you can hand the ball off. Like it's tough if we're just good at motion just for the sake of it. Like that's a waste of time. But if it's something that attaches all those things together, then it's great. You know what I mean? And I think that's why you see a lot of guys wide open when a 49ers play action pass, because they do the same movement that they did 2 seconds ago when they handed it off, and then they threw a bubble, and now they're doing the same movement, and it's a post over the top of everybody. So I think you, as long as it's something that is a part of your offense, is great. If it's just, you know, changing strength and you're just doing it to do it, you know, it's kind of like the run the ball conversation. You know, if you're good at it, you're going to keep running the ball. If you're not, you're not. If motion's a part of what your offense is, then you're going to utilize it. But you can't. It's hard. Again, it's like the date and marry conversation. If you're going to do it, it's got to be part of your core philosophy.
And then on a big picture perspective here, and we've spoken about this a bit in the past in our former show, and I hope we can speak to you leading up to the draft too. But I'm real into the draft, and I'm reading these reports about how this is a loaded wide receiver draft class. And I laugh because 2 years ago was a loaded wide receiver draft class. And the year before that was a loaded wide receiver draft class. Is this just every year now? And is it getting to the point where it's kind of I don't want to say it's like running backs, but Yoshivas is a really good wide receiver who didn't go in the first and second round. And there's obviously your Marvin Harrison Jr. types who are so much more special than everyone else. But is that position just so loaded now that you're going to be getting good players day 2, day 3?
There's a lot. I mean, I've probably watched the top 4 or 5. Like, you have Marvin Jr., you have Rome Odunze from Washington, you have Franklin from Oregon, who's great, Keon Coleman, and it's hard. Somebody said this to me the other day, you almost have to group guys in buckets, which I think has been Bo's thing for years and years and years, is
old guys throw that bucket away.
Yeah, throw them away. Andre's old too, by the way, but that's neither here nor there. Not old in football because he did track every year.
Yes.
But there seems to be more every year frontline guys. There really does. And I think it's the one skill you can work on without any risk of injury. You know, you can, and there's a lot of stuff that translates, but you can catch 500 balls a day and be great at it. Now these guys they're above and beyond that stuff. But I agree with you. Every year it seems like there's more really good players, and it's harder to differentiate between 1 and 8 than it ever has been.
Do you have a Sixers take you want to get off your chest? More fun to watch this team?
Now, my son, who's outside, is all in. We've watched every game pretty much ever since he's been conscious. Last year, man, it broke me. You know, I was like,
Game 6 in particular?
Just not just the no-show on Memorial Day.
Okay.
You know, and I love Harden being gone, you know, Oubre, all that, but I'm not there yet because I got post-traumatic stress from it. You know,
I think there are a lot of people like that.
Yeah, I just, you know, it's like, oh man, Joel's the MVP, and you know, again, we're going after this to watch a Delaware Blue Coats. We're a basketball household, but it's by you know February, I'll be back watching every game, and then I'm just concerned that's going to take me into the exact same spot I was in last.
You got some scar tissue.
More than somewhat, yeah, more than somewhat. My son doesn't; he's all in now. Again, this is the same guy that almost broke a paddle when Bo crushed him in ping pong a couple minutes ago. So.
I respect that competitiveness. It's better than apathy.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah,
what's your Sixers standing right now, Zach?
I mean, they're fun to watch, which for the regular season, I think is an important metric because playoff basketball is totally different, right? So what you want from a team in the regular season is you don't want to hate watch them, to use that term, right? You want them to be enjoyable, and this team has an enjoyable quality to it. I think there are a few moves to be made here. I'm curious what moves those are. You can always add more shooting. But overall, I like what I see. And just I watch a lot of NBA, not like Sixers in particular. There are other teams this year, like the Timberwolves, for instance, who you're starting to see the league shift a bit, and size is so important now. Whereas I read all these stories a few years ago that it's a guard-driven league. Players like Jokic and Embiid are dinosaurs. Now you need you need to throw bigs at these teams, and you need to be big across the board. Minnesota, they have Gobert and Towns. They figured it out. They're playing well with each other. McDaniels gives them such length as a defender. They can bring Naz Reid off the bench as a backup big. If you don't have
Naz
bigs,
Reid talk with the Sixers toss.
No, my point is, if you don't have bigs now, it's really hard to win. And there's some really good teams, like Golden State, for instance, who just look small. And
we'll see how much that matters in the playoffs.
But I think the league has shifted to you need size. And I sound like Marty Mornhinweg here. Everything's cyclical. Everything is cyclical because what happens, and it's the same thing in football, where if there's a trend and you go toward that trend, there's going to be a trend buster. The Baltimore Ravens play a different style of football than some of the teams that are in trend, and they have the best record in the NFL right now. So I to the NBA point, you need size, and the Sixers have size, and I think they can keep adding there too.
All right, last thing, Zach. Everybody, I need to do this for Emily's sake. You had another day alone in the house. How did we do sleep-wise last night?
A little bit better. Went to bed earlier.
Okay,
which was important.
Because you're not going to be able to sleep in. You're going to have to just trick yourself into going to bed sooner.
Yeah, was still up early, but I had been a little negligent in terms of like the laundry and the dishes, and I was starting to feel like a bachelor.
Living that bachelor life.
Yeah, I was starting to feel like it. The sink was piled up. I left a few things there that
cookie crumbs all over the place.
Well, I feel like Emily has the house bugged because I'm making the bed first thing in the morning. I'm doing things like that, right? And so I slept more I'm hoping to sleep more tonight, but I do have some writing. I have to prep for tomorrow's show, and I want to get 2 or 3 good articles out this week. I do want to make one point,
the
though.
Sleep is not coming.
Back to what we were previously talking about with the Eagles, and
the beef between you two, or
no, the three of us. And I saw something in the chat before, like Zach's being an apologist. I promise you, I'm not being an apologist. But,
I didn't know that I was.
But let me
tweeting.
give you
Was that
perspective.
both?
We
Was
have
that
Allie
both?
here.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Okay,
I had
we have
my,
Allie here from ALLCITY, from our parent company. Now, I'm pointing that out because the other markets that ALLCITY has, it's Denver, it's Chicago, and it's Phoenix. Okay. In Denver today, they benched their starting quarterback, their franchise quarterback.
Your
right?
boy.
Okay. In Chicago, everything's about the number 1 pick here, right? And I know that's not their pick, but they've been eliminated from the playoff contention. The Cardinals, the only thing interesting about them right now is that their coach is playing their former defensive is playing his former team. The Eagles are an 11-win team. And the fan base right now is probably more upset than in those 3 markets combined. Now, I love that passion of Philly fans. Like that's why I've been working here since 2012, and I wouldn't want to work anywhere else because like I'd prefer that to apathy. And there are some markets that you just don't have that passion. But we've also covered 4-12 teams here. We've covered things when they were really bad. The Eagles are 11-4. They can still get the 1 seed. We're complaining about bad timeouts when they're up by 2.
Bad body language.
Bad body language. And bad body language. Remember
I like that
when
your
we were
response
complaining
to the accusation of being an apologist is to apologize more.
So remember when their top wide receiver was Greg Ward or Travis Fulgham. They have 2 wide receivers with over 1,000 yards already. Their running back is going to get 1,000 yards this week for the first time in his career. Jalen Hurts.
How many 60-catch seasons are we going to get? Give me a break with this. Give me a break.
No,
the expectations. It doesn't matter. Those teams didn't enter the season with expectations of going deep into the playoffs. This team is assembled to be better. If this team had those seasons, sure, it could be worse. We all know it could be worse. That's fine. It doesn't affect how we grade this team. They should be graded on a higher curve. They are paying more money. They have better players. They have a longer track record of success. Yeah. That stuff does, like, I don't care what's going on with the Chicago Bears. That Eagles fan shouldn't be happy because they get 11 wins and they might lose in the first round of the playoffs. That doesn't matter.
Okay, my counter to that is even based on those parameters, they're probably going to finish 13-4. They went 14-3 last year against a bad schedule. They're going to be 13-4 this year against a good schedule. Okay, they're going to have most likely 2 home playoff games. If they win their first round game, they could lose in the first round, but set up for 2 home playoff games. And there's an outside chance of the number 1 seed. Things are not ideal, but I bring up an argument that I made last week, and I was thinking about this actually early this morning when I was awake. Okay, and it's the sequence of games. The Eagles went on a bad 3-game stretch. No doubt about it. It was ugly. We ripped them for it. They did not show up for it.
It doesn't sound like you ripped them for it.
Okay,
it's all about the results.
They did not
for
show.
you.
So I'm saying, they had a bad 3-game stretch in December. San Francisco had a bad 3-game stretch in October. Okay, they lost to mediocre teams who were playing backup quarterback. The Browns were playing, I think, a DGR that day. Now the Bengals they lost to the Colts, right? And I understand they had guys banged up, but my point is, no team since the 72 Dolphins and the 2008 Patriots.
Come on, Zach. You know that's disingenuous.
It's not. Come on, Zach.
What about the point differential stuff? Like, we know that this team is not as good as their record.
They're a flawed team. Every team in the NFL this year is a flawed team.
Give me like 72 Dolphins as if like this. Like, give me a break.
Coach Flynn's nodding his head.
All you're doing is apologizing more.
I'm not apologizing for it. I'm telling you.
Coach Flynn is like, this is like an awkward like Thanksgiving family dinner table.
It's much easier when we did this over the phone. You know what I mean? Like, there wasn't these. I feel like you guys.
Poor guy.
We can come to agree that I think it's both. Well, we're not going to agree on anything, but it can be both to me. Like, it can be, hey, there's stuff that's really got to be fixed that may bite them down the road, but you're still pretty good. You know, like, I mean, are they as good as last year? No, but the team that lost in a Super Bowl is never as good as they were last year. You know, they're in the hunt. They can still do some things. Again, I've said the same thing like 5 times, so I don't want to beat a dead horse. But it's you would think that the record is much worse than it is if you listen to a sort of talk radio
or if you listen to what they do. They fired a coach 2 weeks ago. I mean, they didn't fire him. They promoted him upwards or whatever it is. But like, I'm sorry, I cannot see that they did that and that things are happening in the building like that and pretend like let's still be Pollyannish and guess what? At least we're not Tommy DeVito. Like that doesn't matter.
I don't think it's Pollyannish is a bit much. So like,
yeah,
they're not 8-8. You know, they beat the Dolphins, they beat the Bills. So point differential, you still won. It's not the Premier League, you know, where there's goal differential matters. It's did you win or did you not? So you can make any win look bad if you want. Sure, it's not perfect. There's stuff needs to be fixed. But to Zach's point, again, which we've agreed almost entirely since he got here.
You're way too reasonable. This is why you're a good coach.
It's painful. But you'd much rather be this team than probably 28 or 7 of the other teams. It's not perfect, but it's still pretty good, I guess. That was way too optimistic, but I mean, you have a good quarterback, you have a good O-line.
All of that is true.
Games.
All of that is true.
And you have home playoff.
You're getting healthier, like I've said 3 times. Like, Landon Dickerson, can he come back? I mean, is he?
Oh yeah.
I mean, I
think he'll be back soon. Yeah, Fletcher. I mean, how about Fletcher Cox just sort of like giving us the whole injury report for the week yesterday? Like Avante's coming back, Cunningham's coming back, Landon will be back.
Yeah, I was in there today. That's what Brandon Graham kind of said the same thing because I asked Brandon Graham about this dichotomy between his perspective and what we were talking about, like DeVonta's perspective. And he said he's been in this league long enough that he gave the whole thing. It's hard to win games. He said every week is different, right? Just because a team has a certain record doesn't mean you're going to blow them out. But he said that they're building for the right time. And he talked about how the defense is going to look a lot different when they get some of these guys back. And, man, and we can get to it in tomorrow's show. I don't want to hold everyone up, but there's a lot of love in that building for Avante. And I don't know if that's misplaced because he's a real likable guy and he hasn't been a consistent producer in 2 years for them, right? He's been on the IR more than he's played.
Yeah, I don't think I think it's appropriate. I think the knocks on Avante are that he can't stay healthy, which like that doesn't mean that they shouldn't have the love for him. When he's on the field, he is a very good player.
But I've had about 4 or 5 different players tell me Avante's coming back. Like this is a big deal. Avante being back's a big deal, and maybe it kind of stabilizes your secondary. We'll see.
All right. Well, we got plenty to talk about on tomorrow's show, our last show of the week at noon. So check in for that on the PHLY Eagles podcast. Coach, thank you so much. Enjoy the Blue Coats tonight.
Thank you for having me. Enjoyed it.
Shouts to Austin. Zach, thanks for showing up. We appreciate it. And we will talk to everybody tomorrow. For all of us here at PHLY, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And as always, we love you.